Hi everyone and welcome to this engineering Q&A session. This is for both engineering and chemical engineering. I'm Kathryn and I'm the Schools Liaison Officer at St Catharines College. Most people call it CATS, so that's probably what we'll be calling it in this session. And I'm joined by various fellows and students who are here to answer your questions today. We'll be using the Q&A feature. If you haven't used it before, there's a little Q&A box at the bottom of your screen that will just allow you to type in your questions, and then we'll either answer them aloud or type answers too. You can ask questions anonymously if you like as well, and there's no question too big or too small for us to answer. So perhaps our fellows could introduce themselves and then all of our students.
Okay, I'll go first. My name's David Bainbridge. You get two admissions tutors today. I'm the science admissions tutor. Unfortunately, I have to go at 25 past because I have an examiners meeting at the London Vet School. If you have any particular very specific queries about your own qualifications or anything like that, it might be a good idea to ask those questions quite soon. I'll type them on the Q&A answers. Okay.
Hi, I'm Andy Sederman. I'm in charge of chemical engineering for CATS. I'm actually the director of studies here, which means I look after all the students from the point of view of their academic progress, and the rest of the time I also look after students at Trinity, and of course I work in the department doing my lecturing and my research as well.
Who's next? Is it me? I'll go anyway. I'm Ivan Scales. I'm one of the other admissions tutors. I normally cover arts and humanities, but I'm here to cover for David once he's gone.
I might jump in next. Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Ainalis. I'm working at CATS and also at the Department of Engineering. And so I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone has about the engineering course.
I'm not sure if you want me as part of this, but I'm Megan. I'm the admissions administrator for CATS.
Hi, so I'm a fourth year chemical engineering student. My name's Alicia. So I did chemical engineering via engineering in the first year.
Hiya, I'm Jonathan. I'm a first year engineering student and I'm not going into chemical engineering.
Hi, I'm Kazal. I'm a first year engineer and I'm from Manchester.
Hi, I'm Ty. I'm a third year engineer. And I'm specializing in electrical and info engineering.
Hi, I'm Shay. I'm a second year engineer and I'm just about to choose like my specializations, and I think I'm going to go for the manufacturing engineering tricourse.
Oh, thanks everyone, and we've got lots of lovely questions coming in. I'll start with a particularly nice one. What have you found the most enjoyable part about the engineering course so far?
What I've liked a lot isn't explicitly like linked to the course, but like just the engineering department generally, and it can go into the course as well. So we have this like really cool workshop space called the Dyson Center, which has like 3D printers, laser cutters. You can go in there, like there's loads of like workshop tools you can work with. So I'm quite like a designy maker person, and that's like what attracted me to engineering rather than just like maths and physics. So like I didn't know that existed, so coming to Cambridge and realizing, oh, there's like a space for me to do that kind of engineering as well was really nice to know. And like because that's what I think my specialization is going to be next year, so I've had like a lot of practice and time playing around in there, and all the like technicians there are like super lovely.
Actually, to add to that, I thought it's as well as the facilities provided by the Dyson Center, there are so many different engineering societies, which I've really enjoyed kind of being a part of. I've done some work with Synthetic Biology Society. They have kind of an engineering branch, and we've been working on a hardware project. That's been really fun. Other than that, there's Space Flight Society, there's robotics, there's just eco racing. There's kind of something for everyone, and I think those where you kind of get to take the things that you've learned in the course and then actually apply them into these practical projects with your friends. Those are always really fun for me.
We've had a few questions about the kind of split between practical work and coursework and lectures. Perhaps a couple of you could say what a typical week looks like for you in terms of like the teaching hours and self-study time and how you split that.
I can speak for like normal I feel so bad calling it normal engineering. Not to make like chemical engineering seem like outsiders. But like for the first 2 years of engineering, so it changes up in your 3rd and 4th year, because you then specialize, apart from if you do chemical engineering where you specialize going into your 2nd year. But for the like standard engineering group for 1st and 2nd year, you probably have about 2 lectures per day, and they switch around between either being like 9 to 11 or 11 to 1. And then you also have some labs you do. You have like a lab rota, which means that your distribution of labs can vary from like week to week. But maybe if we like averaged it out, it could be like 4 hours a week of labs. So that's about 2 days worth of labs. And then in terms, we have some like longer labs where that would be like the whole week. You might be in a workshop working on like building a bridge, for example, or we do this integrated design project where we made a robot, and that's again like more of a 4-week long project actually, where every lab session you would be working on either electronics or hardware or design stuff. And then we would also have supervisions, and again this varies from college to college, but I think we have maybe about 3 supervisions a week at CATS, and those normally take place in the afternoon or evening, so they don't disrupt like the department stuff such as lectures and labs.
In 3rd year, that kind of changes up a little bit, but not too much. So you have 2 hours of lectures per module a week, and you do 5 modules per term. With each module, you get a lab, so that's kind of practical work throughout the year. But then how it's different in 3rd year is that you do kind of lectures and lab and just kind of learn for the first little bit, and you have exams a bit earlier than everyone. Once you finish exams, you then have basically a month of just practical projects work. I personally really like that kind of structure. It's nice to kind of do the learning first and then just kind of focus completely on doing the practical project work. And it's really fun to kind of be able to, yeah, again, like kind of put that things you've learned into practice.
Thanks both. Someone's just asked, what's the difference between, we've had a question, what's the difference between chemistry and chemical engineering? But perhaps it would also be good to talk about the difference between engineering and chemical engineering.
Maybe I should take that. So one of the things to understand to start with is the structure in Cambridge. So there's, instead of calling it normal engineering, so I think it's usually general engineering within Cambridge, but then in which in your later years you can specialise in different types of engineering. The other option is if you want to do chemical engineering, which sort of sits a little bit more between general engineering and the natural sciences tripos. And so for that we admit straight into engineering, and we also actually admit straight into natural sciences if you'd prefer that route. And then it's not until the 2nd year that you move to the Department of Chemical Engineering. And so, and then we're a separate department from there. So you can apply to do engineering from engineering with to do chemical engineering to come through the engineering route in the 1st year. At the end of your 1st year, you may decide actually you want to specialise in electrical engineering or something. You may also have originally applied to do engineering and decide you'd like to do chemical engineering. In terms of you'll find that obviously general engineering is a much larger subject. You've got people from all the different specialities there apart from chemical engineering, but then we do a separate course. In terms of sort of what is it and how does it vary from chemistry, maybe it's actually, so whilst the chemistry is important in terms of reactions and what's going on surfaces, in many ways it's the application of physics. It's applied physics to the engineering of how to make things. So it's about how making products and the processes involved and how to do that in a sustainable way, how to make things efficient and understand those systems. So for those, in fact, you need to have that desire that engineering desire to apply the physical principles that you learn in physics and maths as well. It's a highly quantitative subject, so you need to have an enthusiasm for those, as well as a bit of the chemistry to want to work out how to make things, and how to make things in a better way, more sustainable way, and so on. Hopefully that answers it.
You did, thank you, Andy. On that note, someone's also asked, does it matter whether you choose to study chemical engineering and go through the natural sciences route or the engineering route?
Well, from the point of, so this comes to, generally we need to discuss this usually with the other people within engineering, but usually, as long as your progress is good, if you have applied to do chemical engineering via engineering and decide you want to do engineering, that's usually fine. And similarly, if you come wanting to do engineering and then decide you don't want to do any 9 o'clock morning lectures, which is what happens in chemical engineering, then you can move to chemical engineering from the second year. But it is a decision that would have to be made at the end of the first year. Once you move into the second year, then that decision is made. But as long as your progress is good, and you know, everybody is convinced that it's a good move for you, then that shouldn't usually be a problem.
Kathryn, can I just butt in? It's just one question's coming up quite a lot, which is it all right if I haven't done further maths? It's just because otherwise I'll be answering the same question 10 times. Lots of applicants have done further maths, but it's not required for engineering or chemical engineering. You will basically just be grilled on whatever maths you have done. So while many applicants have done it, you can apply without it, but just be ready to really have a good go at maths in the admissions assessment and your interview. Okay, I'll shut up.
Thanks, David. A few questions about the college. What are your favourite things about the college? Did you choose CATS for any specific reason if you did choose CATS? And also, would you switch college if you could?
So the college is a 3-minute run or a 7-minute walk from the lecture theatre. So that's definitely handy. And it's about 10-minute walk to Sainsbury's. And they're the two most important places. So I think that's probably one of the best things about it. No, none of us have changed college. And I think that's kind of a illegal sacrilege.
I would say I kind of chose CATS for very similar reasons to Jonathan. I'm not going to lie. I looked at a map of all the colleges and just kind of said, right, which ones are just too far? I'm just going to cancel those ones because CATS is quite central and you find that really beneficial in terms of like seeing your friends, going to the shops or like going to the department, as Jonathan was saying. And I think in terms of changing colleges, like when you come to Cambridge, you realise like there are things you find out about CATS that you might not have known because it wasn't necessarily on the website, and then you find out about other people's colleges, you know, oh, this is cool here or that's cool there. But I think doing engineering at CATS is like quite a unique experience. I feel like the engineering community at CATS is quite strong. So we have like an engineering society, and we do loads of like events together, so you get to know like all the engineers and like the years above or the years below, and our fellows and supervisors are all pretty cool people, even though I might not say it to their faces. But yeah, they're really helpful and like really know their stuff in terms of helping you with the academic side of things. And then in terms of like the other side of things, so perhaps if you're struggling with your course or you kind of want advice about what to do like outside of the degree to perhaps like better your chances or like better prepare you for a career in engineering, they're always like down to help you and support you with that as well.
I might say I had a slightly different reason for applying to CATS. I mean, I like the location and everything, but I think personally for me, I like that it was quite a small community. And it kind of shows when you join that it's such a sort of tightly knit and community where everyone's super friendly and welcoming. And I love that about the college. But I think I should also say that the choice of college isn't something you should sort of fret about too much. And it doesn't have to be sort of based on sort of academic performance or anything like that. How you choose your college, it should be based on just things like location. You like the look of it, you like the atmosphere, that kind of thing. And eventually you'll learn to, wherever you end up, you'll probably love your college, as I think we all do love cats.
We've had a few questions about supercurricular activities. So if you haven't heard the phrase supercurricular before, that's where you're basically exploring the love of your subject, but outside of your school curriculum. So we've had some questions about the kind of things that you could do or what counts as a supercurricular activity. So before I kind of put this to our students and directors of studies to chat about, it's worth saying that these aren't like a list of compulsory things that you have to do to get into Cambridge. That's not the case at all. This just happens to be how our students maybe decided to explore their love of engineering before coming to Cambridge. So maybe a few of you could chat about the kind of things that you did or read or watched.
I read a book called Invention by Design by somebody with the surname Petrosky. I don't remember the first name. And that was quite a nice book. It was pretty short and not very technical, but about how some common like household items like drinks cans and paper clips, like how they've been designed and why they work well and what the flaws are with them from an engineering perspective. And that was quite fun. And I also did like a project with baking where I tried to bake baguettes in like a systematic kind of way and see what the different outcomes were when you change different factors in the baking process, and try to understand a bit about the science of why that happened. So that was quite fun and good for eating. My family enjoyed.
I might add that I think that was useful for your later studies, wasn't it? Because you ended up doing a research project in food production as well.
That's true. My research project was about cake icing, so I'm seeing a theme here, really.
The first name of the book you mentioned, it's Henry, in case people wanted to Google it.
So I did quite a few things, but I think it's not like you have to do all of these things. I think these are just like maybe some ideas. And I think what's important is not really like the actual quantity of things that you've done, but more what you've learned from the experiences. So you can do a few of these things in the book, you can attend a course. And as I think what's more important is not the fact that you did it and that you can write it in your personal statement, but it's about what you've learned and sort of what you gained from the experience when it comes to talking about it in the interview. So there are some sort of courses that are available. I remember Googling electrical engineering course regularly, and there are quite a few free sort of taster courses that universities run, that kind of thing. Head Start is a great program to get signed up for. During the summer, they'll take you for a few weeks to a university. You get to experience a certain sort of engineering discipline. I enjoyed that. There's Nuffield Foundation Research Placement, which is a really, really great thing. It's kind of like an internship at a university, and you get to do a little bit of research with the professor over a few weeks. Otherwise, yeah, books are great. It can even be simple things like YouTube videos. You can take on, and I think also like don't be afraid to take on your own personal projects if you want to. I know people who have sort of just for fun, they've just decided that they want to build sort of model RC planes, and you'll kind of learn things along the process. So don't feel limited by sort of like all the things I've mentioned cost no money or cost like not too much, are generally affordable. So don't feel like you're restricted by that.
Thanks everyone. We've got a few questions for the directors of studies. So what would you say is most important when writing about Supercurricular in your personal statement? Is it better to write about a few in detail or write about more but in less detail? And then also the question, what type of student are you looking for?
Shall I, I'll kick off with that, shall I? So in terms of for your personal statement, we're mostly interested in your, in how we think you're going to develop your academic skills when you get here. So what we're looking for people who can show that they're interested in, or have a real interest in things. So if they talk about, if they've mentioned things, probably you want something where they can then talk about that in a bit more detail. And so showing one or two things, we don't need a whole list of every book that you've read and so on. And think about the things that have actually really enthused you, not the book that everybody's told you to read or put down because that's the classic book. It's the thing that you found really, the thing that's made you want to do chemical engineering or whatever it is. Yeah, so I don't think you need a huge sort of list of things, but just whatever you write down there, I would say that you want to be prepared to talk about and have a real interest in. Was that was there another supplementary question, or is that good?
The other question was also, what type of student are you looking for?
We're looking for people who have the enthusiasm and ability to take on new ideas, and people who are going to not just going to be able to regurgitate stuff. If when you're moving to university, it's a different type of learning that you're going to be doing from in your school days. It's more independent learning, although there are lots of supervisions and lots of small group teaching to help you along your way, and there's a lot of content that is involved as well. But you want people who are going to think around the subject and not just want to be told what to think. It's people who are going to take ideas and then take them to other places, and not necessarily just following a recipe. And you want someone who's teachable, enthusiastic about it, and that enthusiasm will help them develop their knowledge. And you want someone who's going to do well in the end, but actually, it's having that enthusiasm, that ability to think round problems, which helps you to develop into a great student. I don't know if Daniel's got stuff to add to that.
I think so, and I think that's pretty comprehensive. I guess, some of the other things that we sort of look for is, just to supplement that, is also how you would sort of work as a team, as well as being able to independently do things. I think that's another important thing, is to be able to collaborate as well. I guess some other things, some experience, as was mentioned, is definitely something that you should mention, but obviously be prepared for anything that you put down on an application that we would most likely ask you a question about that.
And it comes down to your ability as well. Thinking about interviews and the obviously you'll be doing A levels as well, or maybe doing A levels or doing some qualifications. So we obviously expect high results in those qualifications. But if we're doing interviews, then we're looking for ability you're not going to be able to do engineering if you haven't done maths. If you don't have those maths skills, you're not going to be able to do the course. So obviously we're looking for those core competencies as well.
And we have actually had a few questions about interviews, how they work, what kind of questions would be asked at an interview. Are they technical questions, or would there be questions about personal statement? You've touched on that. Perhaps Daniel and Andy could talk a bit about what it's like from an interviewer side of the interview, and then some of our students could talk about how they found their interviews.
Yes, it's probably best the students talking about their experiences actually. But in CATS, whether you apply for general engineering or chemical engineering through engineering, you have two separate interviews, which will both be at least partly technical. We'll be asking you to do some problem solving, giving you problems which we hope that you're not going to be able to just do straight away. If you can do them straight away, they're probably too easy. And so usually it's something which will actually extend in time, and even if you get, you might get the first bits straight away, but we'll be asking for, trying to take you through problems and maybe introduce other bits which are more complex to it. And the idea of that is that we don't just want to see, basically, you know, if you learned a problem, but we want to take you to places where you haven't thought of the answer already, but what are your thought processes about, you know, okay, so I know this, but can I bring in this other bit of physics to see what happens there? What's important in this problem, and to try and so work through a slightly sort of extended problem. Yeah, and we often will set some sort of text for you to read and think about the physical, the engineering applications or engineering things of important there, and then we'll discuss those in the interview as well.
Perhaps, and then if a couple of students could talk about how they found it from a student side. Were they as scary as you thought they were going to be? How did you find them?
So I would just say, like, try and chill out basically in the interview, because I think everyone gets very, very nervous. I know I did, but really you won't be able to tell whether you've done a good or bad interview, because as Andy said, they're not really testing what you know, they're more testing kind of how you think and react to problems. So within 5 minutes, I was way out of depth and I had no idea what's going on. And it can be quite intense because there's one of you and probably two or maybe even three sometimes fellows with you. So yeah, just try and chill out and kind of, I don't know, maybe not enjoy it, but enjoy it a little bit. Because I think you won't be able to tell anyway, so don't try.
I think that's a really good point, that some people come in really nervous, and so the interviewers are really used to that. So there will be people who come in and they're nervous, and it's, you know, they'll be trying to take that into account as well. But if you just relax and actually just try and think about it as a problem that if you're applying it and you're good at engineering or this type of thing, you should enjoy the kind of problems that are being set and trying to work them out. It might be difficult to enjoy it when you're worrying about this, but if you just sort of try to disregard that a little bit and just think about the problem and trying to work through it, and I would say as well, talk through your processes, because as an interviewer, you're trying to understand how your the potential student is thinking about what are the possible ways to overcome the problem.
I think it's also important to remember that they're not trying to trick you, and they're not trying to, the interviewees aren't trying to make it especially hard for you, they're trying to help you. So kind of just pretend like it's just like a conversation about something which you're already passionate about, and don't kind of feel like you need to like put on a persona or try and act kind of differently, because it won't really last throughout the interview. And it's kind of best if you just be yourself and show how you're passionate about the subject itself. And then you can just have a conversation, go into some topics which you may not have talked about in school, but you may also be interested in. So just importantly, just try and relax before the interview and not try and completely stress yourself out.
Thanks, everyone. We've had a few questions about, do you have time to do fun stuff, basically? And what kind of fun stuff do you do? So what kind of societies and sports you get involved in at a college level or at a university level?
So I can talk a bit about that quickly. I'm really into music, so I do a lot of music stuff outside of my course. And I found that generally it's all about time management, and as long as you manage your time, there is lots of time to do sort of extracurriculars which are related to engineering but ones that aren't as well. So I've had the time to sort of be a part of 2 different bands and to organize nights for a hip-hop society, to have rehearsals, concerts, that kind of thing. It's just personally what I enjoy doing, but I have loads of friends who sort of also have time to do to go for nights out, to just hang out with their friends, to do sports, various other things. So yeah, definitely I'd say it's just about the time management, and you can definitely make the time.
I would echo what Ty has said, and with regard to that, I remember in first term of first year, I almost didn't do anything apart from my degree, and I wasn't really enjoying really enjoying my experience. And then I talked to my Joss, and I just kind of explained everything to him. And he was like, oh, just chill out and go do societies. Like, don't freak out about like, oh, the only thing you have to do is your degree to get a good grade. Because at the end of the day, he was like, if you're not really enjoying your time, or you're not enjoying studying engineering, then you're not going to do well in it. And you'll find that you probably work a little bit more efficiently or with more energy when you're doing things outside of engineering, or even within engineering that you love. So then that kind of encouraged me to do some of the engineering societies that we have in the department. So I do like some 3D printing, and I also do a society like focused on like sustainable development engineering and how you use like engineering for social good. And then outside of engineering, I do other societies. For example, the African Caribbean Society is always like a good place for me to go chill, hang out with friends. And I also love going to Ty's hip hop sock events. Those are cool too.
Someone said that stereotypically engineers are thought to have less of a social life because of the workload. Would you agree with that, or what do you reckon?
I would say engineers are actually pretty cool people. We give off really good vibes. Even if some people say, oh, we don't really have much of a social life, but even within the engineering department, so let's say you theoretically just stayed within the engineering department all day, every day. There are about 300 people per year. So that gives you enough social life in itself, like just the different mix of people from different colleges you meet, and like find out what they do like outside of engineering and things like that. So within the department, there's like good like social life activities to do. The engineering society also do like loads of non-engineering events. For example, they have like garden parties or discos, or we go paintballing and things like that. But I would say like outside of engineering, when I go to different social events, I also meet engineers, which suggests that we do leave the engineering department. And I would say I was kind of nervous that like the engineers at Cambridge would be like, no offense, but like really nerdy physics, mathsy people. And you do have them, but then they're also great people as well, even the ones who like really love their numbers. And then the ones that are like not as number based are also really cool. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'd also say like most of the courses at Cambridge are quite intense and high workload. So like I don't think engineering is much different, and everyone just kind of finds a way to find that balance for themselves.
I'd just say as well, it's almost, I think it's probably better than some other degrees in the social way, because you have labs where you're talking to people and you have a lot of kind of more contact time. So rather than kind of being in your room writing essays and reading books all day on your own, you do actually have a lot of time to socialise while you're working. So I think it works out quite well.
Also as well, following on what Johnny said, since you also have like a college system and university system, you also have people in your college who you can socialise with, which I feel like is different from other universities where you're all trapped in a big university. You might be quite far away from people you know, but since you're in a college system, you can always have your friends next door and you can always go to them if you just need a break from working or just to relax for an evening and such.
On the note of workload, someone's asked, do you have any tips for avoiding procrastinating? I guess that would be useful both for now in year 12 or equivalent and at uni. Have any of you mastered the art of not procrastinating?
I feel like it's better when you actually have societies and stuff to do, because then it's kind of like a deadline and kind of like a time where you have to get it done. Whereas if you just be working and you're like, oh, I just have this whole evening where I can do this work. But if you have like football or a different society, you're like, I have this one specific time where it has to do it. So I know I have to do it, otherwise it won't get done. So I feel like adding more stuff makes you be able to do the work better, which seems kind of counterintuitive, but I think that's how it works best for me.
I think I've personally found libraries to be very useful. I really like hanging out in the library, just like to have a space where you just do work. So you take just everything you need just for work, maybe leave my phone in my room, just bring it all to the library, and then just get the work done there, and then go home and then just have the time to relax at home. It's nice to have that kind of distinction and to have the like a quiet space where everyone else is working as well. It's nice to have that kind of encouragement from everyone else. And it's especially fun if you sort of make a library trip with your friends.
I'd just say as well, because you've got a lot of different areas of engineering, a lot of the time it doesn't feel like you're doing kind of 10 hours of engineering all day, because you'll do some electrical and then you'll do some civil, and because of that, you kind of keeping up with the changes makes it not too monotonous. So I think that helps a lot as well.
We've got some questions about the Formula student team. Is it hard to get onto? Is it competitive? And how many hours would you usually work on the Formula student team?
I'm not sure if any of us here are like on it. But in terms of like what I've seen or from my friends that I know that are on it, I don't think it's like competitive to get onto. I think it's just because they have like a race every 2 years. So especially in like that second year where it's like all the races that year, they do spend a little bit more time trying to get the projects completed, trying to get their car all ready to go to like Australia or wherever it is in the world. They're going to be racing that. That's with eco racing in specific. And I would say like the numbers vary, and it depends on like what level of commitment you want. For some people, like they want to go into like Formula racing and Formula One, so they spend a lot more time on it, and things like that would be very advantageous for them when applying for jobs, going to interviews, like speaking about that experience. Whereas some other people, they just kind of want to do it as like a cool little thing on the side, so they don't necessarily take up as much responsibilities and just communicate that with the team how much time they have. But I know with some of the ones who do take it like a little bit more seriously, especially like third or fourth years, there are ways you can go about it. So I know they use it as like an internship almost kind of thing, and their colleges sometimes support them with like accommodation in college over the summer and things like that. Because over last summer I was doing my own projects, not eco racing, but like eco racing were like there almost like every day as well. So I kind of got to know them and like their work schedule kind of thing as well.
I'll just quickly throw in a couple of the negative questions. In contrast to the, what are your favourite parts of engineering and of CATS, what have you found least enjoyable about the course, and what are your least favourite things about St Catharines?
So for me, on the engineering course, it was probably the materials, just because that's not really my thing. So I guess the only thing to say would be, if you're dead set on a certain type of engineering and you do know what to go into, this maybe isn't the best type of course, because you do have 2 years where you have almost no choice in what to do. So you are a little bit stuck doing, say, materials for 2 years if you really know what you do want to do. But then the flip side of that is, if you don't know, and I think most people don't know, then it gives you a very long time to decide and really work it out properly.
A few people have asked what are the kind of internship opportunities or study abroad opportunities that you might get as part of the engineering course or chemical engineering.
So the department itself provides a few Europes, which are undergraduate research placements. Basically, you get to, over the summer, you get to do research with a professor or maybe PhD student in a field that you're interested in. Otherwise, there is there are careers advisors, and there's a whole sort of part of the department that's dedicated to helping you find internships. There's a huge database of companies that have offered internships to Cambridge students in the past. They have various contacts, and they have sort of advice on writing CVs and sort of interview practice, that kind of thing. But at the same time, you can also find very easily find your, I won't say very easily, but you can definitely find your own sort of companies to do internships at as well. That's very much encouraged.
In terms of study abroad opportunities, I believe in third year, you can choose to study in Singapore or in France. I feel like there's another one, but I'm not sure what that other one is. No other one, saying there's no other one. Okay, so just those two options. And then again, depending on your specialization. So for me, doing the manufacturing engineering tripos, one of the things we have to do in fourth year, I believe, is an overseas project. So often you would do like a project in a different country just to get the experience of like what engineering is like in different countries. And for me, I've also had the opportunity to do kind of like an internship abroad. So as I said before, I'm interested in like making stuff and sustainable development engineering. So last year I did a trip to Kenya, where basically we've been designing this kind of machine to help them make bricks from plastic waste. So I went to Kenya last year, and then the department like helped me with that, as did college, in terms of like giving people travel bursaries, so that I could fund the trip.
Someone's asked, do the projects allow engineers from different specializations to work together as well as individual projects?
Just as a, I mean, maybe slightly oddly for someone coming from the chemical engineering department, even for our research projects, we have some of those which will be taking part in the general engineering, for example, and also the department here is chemical engineering and biotechnology, so we have a lot of projects going on in the areas of biotechnology and synthetic biology. So I mean, I'm assuming that it's a similar sort of story in engineering, whereby there'll be a big range of different projects. I'm sure the engineers themselves can answer that more specifically.
Yeah, just to follow on from Andy, yeah, definitely. I mean, it does depend on the project. You know, I mean, for instance, from my own personal work and research that we do, you know, we're looking at a range of things related to sustainable transport. So it could be things like composite materials, doing energy modeling the emissions from vehicles, working on biopackaging. Actually, with Shay is actually just started an internship with us, who's going to be working on a project developing some biopackaging prototypes to be deployed in Uganda, hopefully. So, I mean, even that project itself sort of has a number of different engineers and different people who have different specialties. And I guess that's just the nature of engineering, is that it's a collaborative thing, and you'll have different people working on different topics all the time.
I think I found similar things, especially doing projects as well as during my internships as well. A lot of the engineering work that you do will involve working with other disciplines, and I think that's why the course here was really useful for me personally, just getting that broad base so that you kind of have a common language to communicate with between sort of mechanical engineers and electrical engineers, for example. And loads of the projects offered, for example, in fourth year in the department are interdisciplinary. So I might be working on the electrical aspect of it, but since I'm quite interested in bioelectronics, it also involves working with not just engineers, but sort of medics, as well as sort of thermofluid engineers, as well as biomedical engineers. I think a lot of projects tend to be quite interdisciplinary. Yeah.
We've had a question, what attracted you to either chemical engineering or engineering in general? So how did you kind of make that decision? So maybe Alyssa, you could say why you picked chemical engineering, and someone else can say why they didn't want to choose chemical engineering.
Yeah, so because I did the general engineering route, I was interested in engineering, and I wasn't that sure on chemical. Engineering kind of attracted me because I liked maths and physics at school, and I was chatting to my dad, who works as an engineer, about what engineering is about, and he was explaining that it's about using those scientific skills in problem solving and being able to apply them to real world problems, which I thought was pretty cool. I liked the fact that it was more practical, and you could kind of make things that people use and help people. So that's why I applied to engineering, and chemical engineering specifically, because when I was Googling about the different disciplines, it just sounded a bit interesting. I like the fact that it applies to quite a few different industries. So you've got like food, energy, water, pharmaceuticals, and they all use chemical engineers.
I think that covers it, unless any of the engineers want to chip in and say why they didn't want to go down that route.
Just only that if you didn't do chemistry or you didn't enjoy chemistry, then you're not going to enjoy chemical engineering, I guess. So that's why, for me, kind of engineering is what I'm looking into more than chemical engineering.
Someone's asked, do you feel more attached to like the university or the college? So they specifically said as well, like if you wanted to get in touch with an alumnus of another college, would they look at you differently if you'd been to like their college or a different college? So what do you guys think about the college system? Do you think there's like any animosity between the colleges?
I don't think there's any kind of animosity between colleges. If anything, there's a lot of friendliness between colleges. And I've found that there isn't anything that's too different about interacting with people in my college versus interacting with people in the department from different colleges. I feel like I'm equally able to kind of make friends in both. That being said, I do think that because in the college, you live with everyone in such close proximity and you kind of eat together, you go to the library together, it is a lot easier to make friends. But because they're societies, especially, I found that I have maybe as many friends outside of college as I do in college. So I think it depends on the person generally.
A few people have asked about admissions assessment. So have you got any tips for how to prepare for the engineering admissions assessment?
I feel like it's important when doing when preparing for admissions tests that you don't try and learn like all of the year 13 content and try and like learn everything, because they do the admissions test to kind of test what stage you're up to currently. So they're not really going to test you on something which you haven't learned and which you're not going to cover yet for a long time. So for me personally, I did about one past paper or so, 1 or 2 a week, just to kind of get the feel for the style of questions. And I also used a couple of websites which I'll put in the chat, like I Want to Study Engineering and ISIT Physics, which are both really useful at kind of give you like a different style of physics questions. So I feel like in A levels, you kind of get a standard like rinse and repeat kind of questions, but they're looking for more of these like out of the box ones where you need to think differently to like you normally would. So maybe I think on Google, if you just search for some like extremely hard physics questions or some like A level physics standard ones, which are kind of off the books, that would be quite good preparation.
There's also a book called, There's also a book called Professor Povey's Problems or something like that. I think it's geared a bit more towards physics, but it's pretty much the same. And there's just loads and loads of problems for that to work through. So just, you know, pick and choose a few of those that interest you, that you'll find fun. And yeah, that worked for me.
I think I'll also add that if the ENGA hasn't changed too much from when I first did it, I think something that's really important is timing. So make sure when you're doing your past papers that you're timing yourself, especially the multiple choice questions, and don't expect to finish it. If I remember being super stressed after because I didn't do like half the questions, but that's kind of how it is made to be. The second part of the exam is going to test a bit more of your in-depth sort of calculation and whatnot. The multiple choice questions are definitely challenging, but more about sort of speed, and don't worry too much about not like answering everything. I think if you practice with your timer, you'll get an idea of like how much you can do. It's just about just doing it as fast as possible, and you can get good at that. I think if you practice enough.
Thanks everyone. We've got about 5 minutes left and a few questions. So maybe if like one person can answer each of the questions. One of them is, what's the most stereotypical Cambridgey thing that you discovered was either true or that wasn't true? Like when you got to Cambridge.
I would say the lingo, or I don't know how else to describe it, but like they're just certain words that are used in Cambridge that you wouldn't hear elsewhere. And like, for example, when we do things like Q&A panels and we're talking to like other students who are in Cambridge, you've got to remember to like switch back to normal words, and so you can't just throw in things like DOS or Natsky or Komsky or Hall or formals or Cindy's or tripos, just loads of random words you pick up and it becomes part of your Cambridge life. But to like people not in Cambridge, they might not really know what those words mean. And I guess it makes us seem a bit weird when people are like looking in, listening to our conversations, because it almost sounds like you're talking in a different language because there are just so many of those like random words we get so used to using.
Also, I think the thing that I'd say was least true was that I assumed that everyone would like just study and be very, very nerdy and not really have a life. But I'd say like there are obviously people like that, but the majority would be like just pretty regular and nice people.
Thank you. Someone's asked, do you have any study tips to help you work more efficiently? So have you got any words of wisdom for these students in year 12?
I'd say when like solving maths and physics problems, like if they're tricky, like try and look at them and think how you'd do them first and be quite structured about it. Like sometimes you can get bogged up in maths and go to, I don't know, just get confused. Think what principles and what things you've learned you can use in those questions.
Someone's asked, do you think revising for more than 2 hours straight is effective? I mean, I'd personally say no, but I don't know what everyone else thinks of it.
I think it varies from person to person. I think the general is like kind of standard or agreement, especially when you look online or you get like pros or experts to tell you, it's to kind of like slice and dice it up a bit. So for example, with A levels, maybe do a bit of maths and physics, and I don't know what your last subjects will be, history, geography, DT, kind of mix it up, and then that keeps your like brain fresh and like energized. And then there's like, I don't remember what it's called, but there's like a clock thing, an infographic where you split it up into like, oh, spend this much time studying, then take this much break, then this time studying, then this much break. And that's like the most effective way, because you remember like the start and the end of your study periods, but not really like the in-betweens. But then for some other people, they prefer like studying at chunks, or kind of the way they schedule is like, okay, today I'm just going to do this topic in physics and like really know that inside and out, and start with like revision, like just reading over notes, remaking notes, doing flashcards, and then doing like questions. And some people prefer to study that way rather than switching between subjects.
Someone's asked, how often are students tested? Is it once a year? So how often do you have exams and tests?
Yeah, there tend to be formal exams at the end of each year. There may be mocks, particularly in the first year. I'm talking about for the natural scientists, but I think, do the engineers do mocks a lot? Yeah. And then there'll be a range of coursework as well, depending a bit, which will vary from year to year, but the coursework will, like the research projects and so on, are assessed as well. So those would form part of your final, the marks towards your final classification.
Thank you. Someone's asked, when applying to chemical engineering, are you considered an engineering applicant or a chemical engineering applicant?
Well, so the college doesn't separate them in terms of, we have a certain number of chemical engineers and a certain number of engineering, and this is partly, well, because we get people both from natural sciences and from engineering, and of course you've got to be able to do the first year of the engineering course anyway, and then and because of that flexibility that we were talking about earlier, at the end of the first year, the ones that applied to chemical engineering could stay in engineering, or the ones that applied for engineering could go through to chemical engineering. You're essentially sort of considered within the whole cohort. I mean, obviously you're not, we're at interview, it's not as if we're saying, oh, you're good at engineering but not chemical engineering, because you by that stage you won't have done the specialization anyway. We're looking at capability in terms of you know, applying your ability to apply physics to these problems. So yeah, so you have people that we consider in a group, though we're obviously take into account and aware of what you've applied to.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of our questions, neatly at 4 p.m. Well done. Thanks so much everyone who came along this afternoon and asked lots of great questions. If there's anything you wish you'd asked and you forgot to ask during this session, then we're always available to answer questions via email. So Megan's email address can be found on the St Catharines College website. It's undergraduate.admissions@caths.cam.ac.uk, or you can just Google our college and find it easy that way. So yeah, if you've got anything else that you wish you'd ask our students or our fellows or admissions tutors or the staff, then we're happy to forward questions on to the relevant people. And yeah, we really hope you found this session helpful, and best of luck with your studies and the rest of your application and the rest of your summer. So thanks very much everyone. Thanks to our panelists. Bye everyone.